What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more of The Adventures, and we're returning to The Sea of Love, 1988. Thank you again to Stuart, as well as Mark and Phil and others who've been commenting. And the next track of the playlist is Heaven Knows Which Way, which perhaps suggests a degree of omniscience, maybe a bit of teleology, the idea of some destined outcome or direction, though even if any of that is relevant, there's still a lot that is not specified, and perhaps it'll have nothing to do with those concepts. Let's see what I can catch on a first listen. This is The Adventures. The tune is Heaven Knows Which Way, and it's from their 1988 album, The Sea of Love. It is fading. second guess myself for a moment. So yeah, that very much sounds like a, an 80s radio hit, the kind of track that you'd hear and then, catch yourself humming in the days that followed, though I don't think I've ever heard it before. So yeah, number one, like lyrically, I think there is reference to at least religious terminology. I think the story is very terrestrial and between the narrator and this person that he wants to be a significant other, though it sounds like there is yet to actually manifest a relation between them. And indeed, it's like he's saying, I think, if I'm hearing the words correctly, like he offered this other person a ticket to heaven, essentially, and they laughed and threw it in his face. But he's also saying, he wants them to take his hand and take him away from this empty place. And I didn't think in advance the idea of heaven knows or God knows. The idea of like, the details of something may be not discernible to human observers, but perhaps the heavens, a theistic entity, well, they would know, because, they know everything. There is an omniscience there. And so I think maybe that's the meaning of the phrase, like, heaven knows which way. He doesn't really know what direction he wants to be taken by the hand by this other person, but he knows he doesn't want to be here anymore. So this way, that way, heaven knows, but he wants to go to a higher plane, into a better place with this person. So yeah, it sounds like he's saying, this could be something special between us. I tried to show you that before. You kind of laughed it off and even just, brushed it away, threw it back in my face. But I'm still here. I still think this could be something. And I think there was a line like, we fell from grace. I don't know if I was mishearing that and it was just the, like, throw it in the face line. But again, like, fall from grace together, something like that. So yeah, I feel like it's playing with religious terminology more than like invoking it in a metaphysical or supernatural sense. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, it sounds like the situation is ongoing, and he's like trying to sell the other person on the possibilities at hand. But at least previously, the other person was sort of, again, dismissive or didn't view it the same way. So yeah, it's a very interesting song lyrically, whether or not I'm hearing it correctly. But yes, I also enjoy, again, these like 80s synth rock sort of, I don't know if you call this a ballad, but it had a bit more energy than maybe some ballads do, but it certainly had that kind of like emotional 80s song feel. So it made me nostalgic, quote unquote, even though I don't think I've ever heard it, because it sounds like the kind of tunes that characterized radio play when I was a mid to late single digit kid in the second half of the 80s. So, it sounds like tunes I know, even though I don't think I've ever heard it, if that makes sense. In any case, another cool tune from the album, and I do see, why this album would have caught people's ears, because it just, there's some good melodies, the vocals are good, I'm, having a fun time trying to follow the lyrics, so a compelling album so far. Let me know what you think, and Luca and I will see you next time. Peace.